I am the council member who requested that we put this item on the agenda. It came to us through the mayor's conference. This is something that has been worked on for a very long time by certain agencies, including East Bay Regional Parks, and several cities in Contra Costa County have already passed this resolution. The Contra Costa Bar Association also created a working group relatively recently to bring forward the Port Chicago 50 and what happened, and really in the spirit of, as was explained by one of their representatives, with the idea that by bringing this forward and bringing this painful part of our history forward and discussing it and honoring those who were part of the terrible things that happened to those who are part of this, can help to build trust in our legal system today. And so there is a great desire. We just had to see all of the cities in Contra Costa to pass this, and then also to go beyond that, that this is something really that can go nationwide to really be a talking piece for in communities across the country, as something that people really can come together on. It's already, there's been work in many other communities, and I think that was included in the packet. So I don't want to start repeating myself, but that's where this came from. So I know we have a speaker. Maybe we want to open the public, unless we have questions for staff before. Okay, so we will open public comment on this item, and we have Mr. Warnoff.
My objection to the proposed resolution is not that it isn't a worthy cause. That is not my objection. My objection is I don't see the nexus to the city of Orinda, and I don't see why this particular issue should be singled out from among all the worthy causes that are out there, including many that directly affect the citizens of Orinda. For example, why not adopt a resolution that BART make itself safer and cleaner? Just to give one example, that's something that directly affects many, many people here in town. To me, this resolution is nothing more than virtue signaling and hopping on some bandwagon that somebody else started. As I say, I have no objection to the cause. I haven't studied it. I know it's something that's going around, but there are countless causes, and I don't think that it's the function of this city council to pass such a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warnoff. Do we have any other public speakers on this item?
Do not.
Okay, great. So we'll bring it back to the council at this point. I'll just share here for what it's worth that, I certainly would agree that we're hopping on the bandwagon here of something that someone else started, and the efforts to make right what happened in at the Port Chicago Naval Weapons Base started very soon after the convictions with Eleanor Roosevelt. I can say that I do think it's very relevant to Orinda, and I certainly wasn't intending to share this, but in light of the comments, I think it is very relevant to Orinda. And that at the time that I can say certainly that at the time that Orinda, that this happened, this was a community, a very new community. A lot of people had moved to Richmond for those jobs, and it was a time when there was a movement around the country of we had it was, I could say that some of my family was here in Orinda, some of them were in Chicago, and Chicago had become a place where African-American families had moved from sharecropping circumstances into Chicago at that time. And my grandfather was very fortunate enough to have a Guggenheim Fellowship to kind of document that. And after the war, and some of his friends from the war came out, and from that community came out here, and Dorothea Lange, for instance, and felt that this community here was going to be a place where people came together, and that people would, who come out to the shipyards and to the shipyards jobs, and would come and prosper here. So there was a lot of hope for that. And there's been a lot of work on things like the Port Chicago 50 and other inclusionary events through time, but that have really picked up recently, and that I think have uplifted many spirits in our community. So I thought it was important for us to bring this forward. I believe it's Walnut Creek, and I don't know, David, if you know other communities that also, but I know Walnut Creek was left out of the list, and they were they reacted at the mayor's conference and said, no, we've already passed it. So I think there's really a feeling that this is something really good that we can do, a limited thing. Yes. If there's something we can do to fix the BART trains, and advocate for that, I am all for it. I will do whatever I can for that, because BART is an incredible asset to our residents, and we do need to be behind seeing that get back in shape. But yeah, so that was my reason for bringing this forward. Any other comments?
I just wanted to thank you, Mayor Miller, for bringing this to us, because I was not aware of this until reading the resolution and preparing for our meeting. And I ended up Googling and educating myself more about, a not pleasant part of American history, but one that it sort of gave me a sense of, I was happy to have the education and be educated. And, to that end, I think there are things we do sometimes that are somewhat more symbolic, but they're important. In the resolution talks about social justice, racial equality, and workers' rights, and it's about equality and making sure that people have working conditions that aren't impacted by bias, and this history was really interesting. So thank you.
Oh, terrific. Oh, City Manager.
I was going to mention one other thing, because in assisting the mayor with developing the staff report, though I want to compliment her on the good staff report she just gave the council. One of the filters we do use on positions like this is whether or not it's something like a bill or measure one of our local representatives. And I just would like to note that Congressman DeSaulnier is one of the authors of the resolution that's seeking the exoneration. So that is consistent, in the rationale that we use in determining whether we'll take positions on certain federal and state legislation that also would apply in this instance. So.
Member Iverson.
I actually had a similar reaction to Mr. Warnoff when I first saw this, because it's been a running joke in our household that Berkeley likes to make foreign policy. And I never want to be a city council that, postures about foreign policy, national policy, every little thing that's a good idea, an important cause, an important issue. We will never get through the items for the good of the city, which sometimes take more than an hour. So I do think they're more meaningful. It's like The Incredibles, if everything is special, nothing is. I would like for us to try to make the items for the good of the city mostly about things that are important to Orinda. And the reason I actually thought this was worth supporting and really nice was I actually read it carefully because I was curious. And when I saw that it's relevant to Orinda because we are part of this group, we are part of Contra Costa County, we are part of the story, I actually really liked it as well and was happy to support it. But I thought it was actually a nice caution on Mr. Warnoff's part to not get scope creep, that every compelling story become a resolution, because that's also dilutive to the things that we do recognize.
Okay, do we have a motion to pass item F1?
Happy, Madam Mayor, to move that we adopt the resolution to support the Port Chicago 46-23.
Favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries 5-0.